Nightmare House is a mod for Half-Life 2 where an unsuspecting person enters a seemingly normal house. Atmosphere. The narrow cone of light emitted from the torch makes some of the level design quite spooky, and large amounts of blood in the game and use of foreboding lighting give the game an eerie feel. But that's about it. The atmosphere has its flaws with the use of all the assets in Half-Life 2, which for me personally disarm the game, and certain bugs and glitches that ruin specific moments. Nightmare House is trying a little too hard to make the place frightening, and some of it is a bit over the top. That's no Harry Masons. Scares. The game is mostly jump scares and scripted events, with lots of different ones cropping up throughout the game, from turning the lights out and filling the room with monsters to having you climb onto planks which are precariously placed above what seems to be an infinite void. Some of these are creative, but there's lots of them that are very predictable. There are some really nicely executed scripted events, but these are rare, and the game is mostly jump scares, and the scripted events that aren't unique are kind of cheesy. Even though there's a decisive lack of original content, what's in the game is very effective, if a little cheap. That's one Harry Mason. Sound design. The soundtrack consists of two whispery tones that seem to play at random, and the sound of wind blowing that changes subtly throughout the game, but again, that's about it. There's a few incidental music cues that play, but the game is pretty devoid of music. The sound effects that aren't from Half-Life 2 are low quality, and it's very easy to tell them apart. That's still one Harry Mason. Gore. There are blood smears everywhere, which comes across as a little silly, but it's not out of place for a game called Nightmare House. Since the game uses the Half-Life 2 models, the corpses are the same gnarly ones you'd see from that game, and there's a lot of blood and alien blood smears on the wall from every gunshot blast, which is just really fun. That's two Harry Masons. Story. There's no need for a story of any kind, and a plot or narrative being forced into an experience like this would have really drained the experience, making the final score 3 out of 5 Harry Masons. Nightmare House is exactly what you expect from a game called Nightmare House. It's a haunted house of horrors that is trying to scare you, and it does. Again, I'd like to remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share his opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst free horror games are free horror games, I did not scream like a banshee or run over the computer, and I advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. Let's go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.